often I get invited into organisations because on the surface it doesn't look too bad, but as you start digging, there are areas that are fragile and some areas that are broken. Where's the flexibility in how people like to work, what their unique personalities are? What does that actually mean for that individual? Rigid parameters are you putting around your people? Are you doing that for you or are you doing that for them? Is that giving the best outcome?
Richard, thank you for joining us today. Thought this would be a really good opportunity for us to have a bit of a discussion around New Horizons, yourself, and what you're kind of doing at the moment as a business, and get a better understanding of what role you play within the HR and business sphere. You've got an exceptional background. You've got a QUT degree, AICD, certified chair. There's a lot of formal credentials that sit there at the moment, but I'm guessing that for you, the real education's probably happened, somewhere a lot more messier than the classroom. I'd love to hear a little bit about where it's actually started from and what's brought you to where you are now.
Yeah, thanks, Justin, and thanks for having me. Yeah, certainly a bit of an interesting career to date. Started, I guess, the people career in recruitment back almost 30 years ago now, and that took me all over not only Australia but also into Europe, into UK, which was lots of fun. And I guess through that process of running businesses as well as starting businesses and turning businesses around in that space, got to learn a lot about people and business in itself. So that's been lots of fun. And certainly the practical on the job, in the trenches experience has given me lots of interesting knowledge that you get with doing things right and picking up some road rash along the way. So yeah, it's certainly been a fun journey, Justin.
Yeah, look, I think you've hit a lot of points there. And when I look at your career, and you started off in executive search, placing C-suite leaders. At what point did you realize that great people were only just a small portion or part of the puzzle?
Probably I, I started in more pure recruitment and then elevated into search. But through that whole process, it's again, I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about business and organisations, and what can I do to help an organisation achieve what it wants to achieve through its people. And I guess my mantra is improving businesses and the business's performance through their people. And that has always been really my mantra. But what I found in a recruitment and search perspective is that I often saw organisations that were floundering outside of just getting the right person in the right seat for that organisation. It was a lot deeper than that. And that's where I decided, again, almost 20 years ago, to combine my executive search experience with what can I do to help that organisation perform better, not just by putting the right person in the right seat. And that's where the wider HR advisory came about, particularly around a focus on the people through culture, engagement and talent.
Love that. And the reason I say love that is you often see in recruitment that a lot of recruiters go about, well, I can find the right person, I can put the right person into the seat. I'd love to hear your experience on this, but often that right person you put in the right seat doesn't work out for one reason or another. And it's not because they didn't have the skills, they didn't have the qualifications to be successful. But to your point there, that kind of culture piece and making sure they're going to be a fit for the organization is that deeper layer that I think is often missed inside of recruitment. So I'm really keen to explore what made you kind of go beyond that piece of just putting someone in a seat and getting someone into a business, because let's be honest, as a recruiter, you still get paid for that. You still get paid to get someone in there. And as long as they see out often the, you know, the probation period, then all's good from your end. But I'd love to kind of go a little bit deeper into why you felt the need to be really focused on going beyond just putting someone in that seat.
Comes back to, and it's a good question, because it does come back to what do you believe in, and what's your philosophy on the work that you do, and what does achievement and success look like? And I think it depends on the individual. If you look at, you've got vast array of search executives, recruiters, and HR practitioners who are doing things that are intrinsically valuable to them. But what does that actually mean? So for me, I felt there was more to it than, right, okay, I've put somebody into a job, but it wasn't just what happened to them at that 6-month period. It was how has their career developed in that 12-month, 24, 36-month period. And I was genuinely interested and curious with how that progressed. What impact did they have? Could they have on that organisation? But what I often found is that um, with the best intentions, that their careers have that had handbrakes that they couldn't control. And that was due to what was happening internally in the business, and where that business was heading wasn't adding to their career value and wasn't adding to where they wanted to go or playing to their strengths. And I think, and that's where I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting and wouldn't it be fun to have the opportunity to help an organisation to fix some of those endemic problems that they have around, is it a culture thing? Is it a performance piece? Do they know where they're heading? Is it, do the leaders, is their purpose aligned with the purpose of the organisation? So it opened up a whole bunch of interesting questions for me. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if I could help those companies to perform better? And as a result, the people that I put into those companies have the opportunity to perform even better and to fulfill what they want to do in their careers and in their job.
I think there's an underlying piece of what you just said there. My key takeaway there is genuine care. The reason I say that, it sounds like you're actually not just thinking about the business side, but you're also thinking about the candidate, or, who you've actually placed into those businesses. How do we make both parties successful? That's the
100%.
kind of the underlying takeaway that I just took away from that. When you kind of talk about where your shift was, it's about, I want to make sure that I'm, setting these businesses up for success, but I'm also setting up the people that I place in there for their own careers to be successful as well. And, what happens there is that both parties have very successful journeys
Mm,
essentially out of it. And that was just my key takeaway that I took from what you're saying. And what I'd probably like to understand a little bit more from that is, because it sounds like that's almost the foundations of where New Horizons Solutions has kind of come from as well. So I'd love to kind of know a little bit about what that journey looks like and what New Horizons Solutions actually does to set these businesses up for success, and what the kind of mantra that yourself and Graham have built New Horizons Solutions on.
yeah, certainly. And it is around the strap line, like I said, of improving the performance of business through people. And ultimately, it is looking at what's going on in the business through a commercial lens. But like I said, where's the care and attention around the people, and where's the focus on the people, and what are some of the key problems and challenges that need to be solved? But within that, who can solve those problems? Is it, and what value can I bring to help solve those problems? But also collectively within that organisation, how is the talent within that business, and what can we do to enable those individuals to step up, to play to their strengths, and ultimately they're successful along with the organisation.
Yeah, great answers. And if you kind of dig a little bit deeper on that, where is New Horizons Solutions best positioned to help and support? What types of businesses do you work with? Where do you see your ICP and, I guess, the best kind of work that you do?
Very much in the small to medium size enterprise. So we love working with founders. We love working with CEOs and boards and shareholders. And they're often inextricably linked within that, which has its benefits and challenges along the way. But these are certainly businesses that are growing, that are looking to grow, or they've had challenges in growing, and particularly around enabling their people.
Yeah, perfect. So when you get a call from a founder, for example, and they call you and say something's going wrong, something's just not working, and I just can't work out what that is. Where do you actually start?
It's always starting with them. So they've often got a few inklings of what is the main problem and main challenge, but also it's sometimes not always, but sometimes they've got an idea of where they're at and why they're in this issue, but they need somebody who, again, has got experience in business, has also experience with people in business and the challenge that that brings as someone to run ideas by. But ultimately, it starts with the founder, the CEO, the major shareholder, to then, right, well, let's unearth what is actually going on in your business. And I've got a range of diagnostic tools I use, but it basically, which is fine, but it's about where is that individual at? Where are they stuck? Do they know what the problem they think needs to be solved may be the right problem to solve, but often it's something else. It's something deeper. So it's about discovering what that is and also working with that person to ensure, right, well, we're in this together, and ensuring that they understand what the real problem is.
Yeah, that it makes me curious. So, because I'm assuming when you do get a call from some of these founders, sometimes there's a lot of information that wouldn't make it to a board paper. Let's be honest there. There's a lot of insights that
100%.
don't naturally get said. So I look at what kind of gets said behind closed doors. So when the doors are shut, what's actually being said. And for you, when they call you, I'm assuming it's probably difficult sometimes to actually get them to really honestly open up
Mm.
on occasion of what's happening there. But for you to do your work, that's where that information, that honest truth, and that, you know, the things that are happening, that's what you need to come out of them. So can you give me a bit of insight into what it looks like when you are having those honest conversations, how open these founders are, how, what does it look like?
I think it's a mix of, if you talk to honesty, it is, everyone's upfront and honest. That's fine. But it's about what are the different truths that they see or hear through the lens that they're looking at things through. So they might have an objective view, but also their executive senior leadership team and mid-managers will have similar or different views. So it's about getting a balanced judgment and view on that. But I think the big thing is, are they clear with what they're doing, but also clear with why they're doing what they're doing? So in terms of, is it meaningful work? Is there a sense of belonging within the, and where are the fractures of that, and why are there fractures? And what are the standards that we know in our head, but we're not articulating, and we're letting people perform, behave at the standard that is below our expectations? And it's
Yeah.
about unearthing a range of those areas, because, and again, every company might look similar on the outside. Some companies might look similar on the outside, but they're very different on the inside, because they're very different people with very different views on what's important to them, and also what are the key things that we need to do to move from A to B.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because I don't think it gets spoken about enough. You often see businesses talk about saying, "Oh, but what does company X's culture look like?" It's kind of irrelevant, isn't it? Because your culture is unique to your business. The way that you work and operate is unique. So what might work for you doesn't mean it's going to work for, business B.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And also, um, and it's the challenge with benchmarking. So be careful with what you benchmark. And whilst it's good to get an idea of whether it be industry benchmark or competitor benchmarks, or industry or professional standards, but where does that fit into your organisation, the maturity of the organisation, the life cycle of that organisation, and also where do the people fit? Where do the people fit in that?
Yeah, really well said. And there's a part that you were talking about before, where the fractions happening or occurring. Can you tell me, because I know every business is vastly different, but in your experience at the moment, in the current climate and, the current way that business are operating, what are you seeing? Like, what are some of the fractions that you often see from these founders and their businesses?
So it's probably a bit stronger word, but what, again, regardless of where they're at in terms of they're a mature business looking at continuing to grow, or looking at transitioning and getting themselves set up for whether it be a sale event or acquire other businesses, or founders looking at transitioning out, and so they're looking at a succession planning so they can spend more time on other aspects of their life or other businesses. It's getting that mix of am I really clear with what I've got, and am I really clear with where I want to go and need to go? So just coming back to, are they really clear with why they're doing what they're doing and where they're going? And I think some organisations can lose their way in thinking that this is the light on the hill that they want to strive for, but are they spending enough time on what that actually looks like? Might sound a bit esoteric, but it's important to understand what that is. And then, do they have the tools and frameworks and processes and systems internally to then be able to hit the standards that they want to achieve today, let alone where they want to go in the future? Often, I get invited into organisations because there's generally a mix of all of those things that on the surface it doesn't look too bad, but as you start digging, there are areas that are fragile and some areas that are broken. And I think also it's about, there's no one size fits all, and I think we're in a interesting time right now where it's about, okay, this is the best practice for doing this, this, and this. So that means we must do that. Really, are you sure about that? Because what got you to where your business is today, which is, let's call it a successful business. There might be some issues and challenges along the way, but what does that mean around, have you got the right people in place? Have you got the right tools for them to hit the standards that you're expecting or not? And I think it's about having an idea of what good and great can really look like. What do we need to do to get there? But also with the different dynamics of individuals and personalities and the way that people like to work, fold that into, what does the culture of the business look like? Is it the culture that we want? What's the culture that we really want to strive for? What are the habits and behaviours that show that we are actually living our values, that show that we've built a strong culture? What does that all look like? But there's no linear line on that. And there's no better example than this morning getting my young daughter to school. So we know what time that she needs to be at the stop, drop and go, and when she needs to get a ticket from the office to go to school. We know those times, but when we have very little time left for her to get herself ready, she wants to do dress-ups and she wants to play pet shops. And it's like, right, here we go again. And how do we, hang on, no, you, hang on, I'm on a clock here. I've got a meeting with Justin at 9:00 and you need to be at school at minimum 8:40 and it's now 8:20 and you want to play pet shops. And it's like, okay, what am I going to get fixated on? And what am I going to get obsessed with? And what am I going to let flex? So guess what? We did dress ups and we did pet shops, but she got to school at 8:40. So what does that mean? Well, perhaps sometimes it's not necessarily all about following the dotted line all the way through to which is how I want it to be, but where's the flexibility in how people like to work, what their unique personalities are, and what does that actually mean for that individual? So is that my daughter, was she happy when she got out of the car? She certainly was. There could have been a big blow up and she wouldn't have been that happy, and so she wouldn't have been that engaged going to school. So think about that with your staff. Parameters, rigid parameters are you putting around your people that are you doing that for you or are you doing that for them? Is that giving the best outcome? So it's just being a bit flexible, Justin, in that you might have some clear guidelines and, from a compliance and ISO perspective, you need to follow the bouncing ball. But in other aspects, what are the areas where you have narrow guardrails and you have pretty wide guardrails? And where is that okay?
That's some really interesting food for thought there as well, because I think when you look at a lot of small and medium businesses, and I'm talking for you maybe a little bit here, but often they'll look at things through a commercial lens. That's just purely what they'll do. It's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. So what you're kind of talking about there is, I wonder how a lot of these businesses kind of cope with when you come in and you talk to them about the softer pieces. So those pieces like, that culture and the understanding of ways of work and understanding around the types of personalities. And like you said, being able to flex a little bit and not be potentially so regimented. How do you make that kind of soft stuff hard?
So interestingly, I rarely talk about, okay, it's about the culture. We need to change the culture. It's about what are the outcomes that we're looking for? What does what could good and great look like within this team? That okay, we've got a team here that's not performing. What would a high performing team look like? And then it's about breaking that down into bite-sized chunks on where are the key issues? And is it a performance? Is it an attitude? Is it a capability? Is it a capacity matter? So where does it fit within those lines? Is there clarity within their role? So there's a whole raft of things that you would look at, but the hard things is, well, what are the outputs? What does good and great really look like within this team? So they're the hard measures, but then there's some very disciplined and direct actions to then make all of those things work around the capacity, around the attitude, around the capability, and where the business is going, where's the purpose. So there's a bunch of things there, Justin.
Yeah. Look, let's put this in perspective with your daughter. You kind of touched on that before. It's like we talk about attitude and performance. I wonder what that looks like for her. All jokes aside, because I completely understand that.
She could tell you, she'll have an opinion on that, I can tell you that.
But it's not too dissimilar, is it? When you actually look at like how you kind of manage a family lifestyle to a work lifestyle in that sense. Sometimes there's a lot of relatability that sits there.
Yeah, there is. Obviously, they can be poles apart as well, but I think, and the last thing that you don't want to treat your team like like you treat your offspring, but there are some lessons learnt on both sides.
Oh, look, I often get told off all the time at home for talking to my wife like a coworker. So I get it. You got to be careful about how both sides of the party there. You got to be careful about how you talk to your family versus how you talk to your work and vice versa. There's some relatable sides, but they are very different at the same time. So it kind of leads me to another topic that I think it's a worthwhile conversation point because it's so heavy within every business you talk to at the moment. It doesn't matter if they're blue collar, it doesn't matter if they're white collar, is the AI topic. So, what's real and what's not. So everyone talks about it. Most people are anxious about it in one way or another, whether they want to admit it or not. You're inside of these organizations, though, having real conversations every day. So what are you hearing from your side and, what's your feel on it?
Look, I think organisations, and there was an article in Fin Review last year that talked about in terms of who has a seat at the table around AI transformation and the lack of, and this is within, let's call it ASX 200, 500, the lack of HR executives CPOs sitting at the table around AI transformation was alarming. I think it's about ensuring that it's as much as a people transformation as it is a technology transformation. If you think around the opportunity to make your work and life easier, more productive, and coming back to the capability and capacity piece, what parts can AI assist you with? And I think one of your other podcasts, Drew Mayall, said it's more having a partner in thinking. I love that term. It makes it more, you've got a work buddy sitting next to you to help you think through some of the big challenges. So what part does AI play around, whether it be the grunt work or the thinking work, so that you can be better? I think there's also there is room for concern in terms of what will it do to the employment landscape, but also where are the opportunities? I think we need to look at it from a balanced point of view. Yes, there've been alarming numbers of people let go from predominantly SaaS businesses. I am sure that all of those individuals will be snapped up into other organisations very quickly with the skills, knowledge, experience that they've got. So it's just where's the transfer of knowledge? Where's the transfer of tasks? Where's the clarity on roles? And particularly, well, what will an AI team be doing? And what will a human team be doing? And it's similar to the wave of offshoring. Okay, we're going to offshore um, these level of roles to offshore teams. Okay, what does that mean for the Australian workforce? That means that there's been a gap in talent in certain roles in Australia for that where those roles are now all offshore. So that will then be a similar AI front. But what elevation of that experience, where have those people gone? And most of them, have, if not all of them, have secured other roles. But also it's about us as individuals embracing the change. So, and looking at it through a lens of this is an opportunity from a people transformation perspective with new exciting tools at our disposal to be able to do interesting and exciting things to then help us be better at what we do, elevate our careers, and help out the organisations that we work for continue to be successful. There was an interesting doco on Industrial Light and Magic, which is obviously the George Lucas's organisation that built all the tricks and whatnot for the likes of Star Wars all the way through to ET, etc. In the early 90s, that's when CGI came in, and they had a team of people who were embracing it. They set up the training to use the tools, and people who were embracing it. And then there was another camp that, well, no, puppeteering needs to stay. We need the hard models. And they chose not to embrace the change, not to take up the training, and they didn't last at the organisation. So I think there's an element of us all keeping up with the change, doing what we can to educate ourselves, but also organisations to look at it seriously as positive opportunity. But don't get analysis paralysis. Don't overthink or wait for another 6 months because there'll be iteration number 5 or 6 out and that'll be better. No, you need to start today because as an organisation, you'll be left behind.
Yeah, and I think you make some really good points there. There has been a lot of obviously redundancies within tech businesses has been widely spoken about. But like you said, a lot of those people have got a lot of transferable skills and they'll be snapped up very quickly. I think you can look at the world as there's always transitions. There's always things that happen. You know, when the web came in, it was a big evolution as well. It's just the nature of evolution of how we kind of go about human life in that sense. So, but you made some good points. It's like, I think there's a part that people need to kind of get with the times and people need to take it on board and people need to start testing and trialing. And, the other risk you run is you just kind of get left behind. And I know you actually work with a vast range of businesses as well. So you obviously work with engineering businesses, but you've also worked with tech businesses. And what's the adoption levels look like there? Does that differ between organizations as well? And, the appetite that sits there?
Absolutely. I mean, those who have a culture of innovation and let's try new things, they're the ones who are quick on the uptake, who are making the necessary adjustments and changes and trying things out. Those that are a little bit more passive, a little bit more hesitant, they haven't necessarily got an innovation culture. They're slow to the adaptation and they will be left behind. And it doesn't matter what industry they are in. They may be, we're reading about technology organisations, SaaS businesses that aren't as innovative as perhaps they should be, and they're getting left behind. So,
Mm.
and then there are some traditional um, engineering heavy industry organisations that are adapting. They've always had that culture of innovation, of adaptation, of let's try new things, and they're getting ahead of the curve. It's like
So,
any change, any major seismic shift in business or technology or people, whatever it might be. You need to be at a point where I'm ready and I'm nimble enough to make those changes.
yeah. So I mean, based on what you're saying there, it's almost not even industry. It's based on the appetite for innovation in that sense of how willing they are to take it on board. and try new things. And what about from a people function using AI? Like, where do you see AI sitting within the people function in that sense? Is it they the adopters within inside of businesses? Are they the ones that are running the risk factors that sit there? What's that look like?
They have a massive part to play. They need to be not only the adopters but the enablers. So we need to think of AI transformation as a people transformation, using the AI technology as the tool as part of that. So yeah, they have a massive part to play around role redesign, that capacity planning redesign. How does that look? What parts of process and roles will AI do to then enable individuals to do what? So that is key. And also, what's the change management plan around that? And how are we ensuring that people are up to speed? What's the training around that? What's the development plans around that? And how does that then affect and improve the culture of the business? How do we ensure that we're still living our values? How do we know we're still performing at the rate we need to perform? Or what's the opportunity to perform better?
Mm.
But also, where's that ensuring that we've still got that harmony between work and life? And what are the opportunities there?
You've obviously been using the platform as part of your advisory work and part of your tool belt at New
Yes.
Horizons. What's the actual change that you've made there bring into these businesses you're working with from a data and behavioral science point into the engagement? That used to rely on gut feel, or you used to have to use manual processes. What's the evolution look like there for you?
So coming back to your question before, and it's often a question I'm asked. I think I'm asked it at least once a week on, but can you give me some hard data on how do I measure culture? How do I measure we're living our values? How do I measure if is a part of where we're going? And I think that's what Compono has given me, the tool to then show other organisations that yes, we have a tool that can help really identify and define your culture, engagement, but also we also have a clever tool that when we hire, we can overlay potential candidates with where is our culture sitting. Are they aligned to how we like to work? And also around their own personality, their own work personality, where does that fit in to the role, the dynamic within the team and the dynamic within the organisation? So um, I I love hard facts. I love data. I love something to fall back on in terms of here are some reasons why it's not just vibe, not just it's some real facts and figures. So that's what I love about using Compono. It doesn't really matter what I think; it's about what my clients think in that as well, which is right, I've got something tangible here. I can use it. I've got a line from day one, and then day 90, day 180. What does that look like as the worm turned, or what else do we need to do to address the things that aren't working, and also to continue to push the things that are working?
You spoke a really good point there around, it almost doesn't matter what you think, it's what your clients think, what are the results they're getting. And do you have any feedback from their end on, since you have been utilizing it with your clients, what are they saying?
All of those things, all of those areas of, well, it's good to have some facts and some data on how we can measure these esoteric words around culture, values, engagement, how we work, and that's been enlightening for them, as well as understanding how people work differently, how different work personality styles fit into different roles, but also different work personalities can add value to a team of alternative roles. So there's a great way to work with the facts to then work on some of the grey areas and hazy areas of all things HR and people and culture.
Amazing. And look, one last one, Richard. probably my favorite one. I always save the favorite for last. 25 years of doing this kind of work with inside of businesses. Is there one thing that you want a business owner that's listening to this conversation at the moment to sit with as food for thought? What would it be?
I think the one thing is listen to your people, but also have some balance and structure on how you listen to your people. And what I mean by that is don't take don't take everything they say as literal, or don't take it personally.
Mm.
But within that, what's the structure that you're running to ensure that you're dealing with the facts and you're dealing with the areas that really matter in a business? So what do I say that? It's around in an organization, some people are, you get noisy feedback that sometimes is helpful and sometimes it's not helpful, particularly if it's constant, it's not necessarily helpful. And then you have silence in other areas, which is exactly where you need the feedback. And it's about, as a result of that, and what's framework is, is there enough trust and respect within that cohort that will give you open and honest feedback? And also, can you give them open and honest feedback as well? So if you have those aspects, that's gold. And what I find is when I go into businesses, and whether they're on the grow, they're floundering a bit, they're stuck, I often find that the level of trust and respect, it isn't necessarily where they thought it was and where it should be for them to make meaningful decisions on the information that they've got, which is where when I come in, I sort of distill all of that and I can break that down.
Yeah, that's great. Do you find a lot of businesses when you do start working with them, like part of it has been they have been avoiding the feedback because they're afraid of what it is going to come back? Is there that aspect to a lot of these businesses?
Look, sometimes, but also it's rarely that they completely avoid it. But they haven't set up a forum. There hasn't been an open forum for that to
Mm.
occur. With the best will in the world, it just hasn't worked today.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think this has been a really insightful conversation, Richard. So I do appreciate you jumping on board, and I look forward to having many more conversations we can have on what's going on in the industry and the likes.
Looking forward to it. Thanks again, Justin.